You know, when you wander around the United Kingdom, you know what it's like, chums. You do sort of find things and look at places that when you were younger, you sort of tend to walk past because when you're young, let's be blunt, you're not necessarily interested in your history. You might be taught it at school and you know all about, say, the medieval times or the Georgian era, but the things around you, you're not really interested in because, well, they've always just been there. A few years down the line, you realise that you lived in a town, for instance, that may have had 5 cinemas, 4 co-ops, big churches, you know, and promenade, bandstands. Who remembers ever going to a park with a bandstand where every Sunday, most of the time at least, the local brass band might have entertained you for absolutely nothing? You could sit in deck chairs for pennies and literally admire the scenery around you. Look at the other people who were rich, better dressed, and of course, you know, as Wilfred Pickles, the famous BBC broadcaster, said, you could be courting. Oh yes, who remembers that phrase? And it's this particular building that I wanted to share with you today because, you know, when you go past it, and particularly when you're a lot younger, you wonder who lived there, what was the life of that building, and truly what went on behind the scenes. Now, it's interesting, as I say, because you go past it many, many times during, you know, your young life and all that sort of stuff, and you move away, you go to big places around the world, some of the biggest places in the world, and then you come back and start to think, yes, I do remember that. Now, I'm sure many of you will realise that where you've been or when you've gone home, you'll remember the local cinema or the local theatre that you went in and you saw the red plush seats, the wonderful big screen, and you thought, wow, this is very plush. Well, this particular building is in the very heart of Yorkshire, a place called Ravensthorpe in West Yorkshire. And the history behind this, well, as much as I've been able to find out, was this. You see, according to local folklore, this building, which is the only way I could get to film it now because it's all been barricaded in by a brand new shopping centre, you know the sort of thing, chums. Well, the local blacksmith used to be here. And not only was he friendly, but according to sources, had one of many jobs. But you can imagine being the blacksmith around this area would have been very lucrative, particularly in a day when you have mass sort of transportation coming from the likes of Leeds, Bradford, Wakefield, Huddersfield, all in their horse and carts and their fancy carriages. They would all have to have their horses re-hooved. All the chapels up and down this particular area, which have sadly now been long gone and taken over, if you get the drift, well, they would have also had very rich people, and you know, the blacksmith would have been the very centre of this particular community. The story goes that in the winter months, he had the open door and lots of school children would gather round for a warm just before they went home into, some might say, not too warm homes. You see what this is like. This is apparently the backstory of this particular building. But if you are from this area and you do know more, or perhaps there's other things to add to this particular story, do let me know. Joe Kay worked for the council. He used to have to remove all the dead bodies from the houses during the smallpox epidemic in the 1800s. They'd take them to Mirfield for communal burial. None of the family caught it. He was the blacksmith and fireman for Ravensthorpe. He had about 6 jobs. The fire engine was just an ordinary hand-drawn cart, where of course the clinic is now. There was a bell. If you rung it, it warned you of a fire and you got 2 and 6 for going out. The ambulance, amazingly, was a Rolls Royce. As ever, thank you for joining me on that very short canter through history. It's always lovely, isn't it, to look at other buildings, places, and you kind of think, you know, the days when you saw massive sort of walls with names engraved on or people's houses. It was nice because you could see the dedication that the builders had actually put into that particular project. Now, when you buy a flat or a house, you're wondering if it'll last 10 years, aren't you? You know, these places not only were rich in history, but also rich in craftsmanship, architecture. People were proud of what they'd built in their own particular area. Now, I'd like to throw this over to you, chums. Is there a particular place in your part of the world that you remember that maybe has now been demolished in the way of, you know, modernisation? Or, you know, is it a place that's still there, but a bit like this place is going to rack and ruin, and nobody really knows, you know, where it's gone or what's happened? The other day I came past an old police station that when I was a child was a very busy place. As you can imagine, nobody wanted to go inside. And now, sadly, Well, it's just seemingly empty. Nobody seemingly knows what to do with it. But why is that? And why are these buildings just left when their rich history have so many stories to tell? As ever, if you can, please like and share and comment respectfully. And don't forget, what's your history in your part of the world? New Sean in the very heart of Yorkshire.